They were only 20 years old and had never left America. Donald Keller, a radio operator at Omaha Beach, was wounded twice, but completed his tour after serving in Normandy and later in the Battle of the Bulge.
Right?
Lawrence Gulick was an aviator.
I had hair on my head then.
Gulick flew 30 combat missions over France.
Yep.
His mission on board his B-17 Flying Fortress was to drop the bombs in the right places.
I was supposed to have
Harold Angle, meanwhile,
Ron Starr.
arrived in Normandy with the second wave.
As we went through and liberated small French villages, many of the French people came out to the road with wine glasses, passing out French wine to the soldiers as they walked along.
The three men didn't know each other. Their paths never met, but together they helped change history. Today, they are among the last witnesses of what happened on the 6th of June, 1944.
Ready?
They are almost 100 years old now. Their gestures might be a bit hesitant, but their memories are very much intact.
Do you want to button it?
Well,
Or you want to leave it open?
let's leave a couple buttons on it. Get one at the top and one at the bottom. This jacket's a good 75 years old.
Wow.
The first one is the Purple Heart. And if you see that little thing they call an oak leaf cluster, that means you have two of them. The next one is a Good Conduct Medal. Everybody gets one of those unless they screw up somewhere. And then I have one, I forget what two of them are, but the one with the three little stars is the combat that I've been in.
Donald Keller is unsure about the exact date of his first injury.
I guess it was the 6th. It had to be. We came down the rope ladders on the ship and waited for the landing craft to get up closer and then jumped in it. And then it took us over to as far as it could go. They dropped the front of it down in the water and through that to the beach. And by luck, we saw sort of a gully to our left slightly. So we took off for there for cover. That was why I'm probably still here. And I went up through there, on up to the beach, up on the high ground, we'll call it, as far as...
Which beach was it?
It was Omaha. Yeah.
Just before Donald and his comrades in arms reached the dunes of Omaha Beach, faced with the fire of German machine guns, the US Air Force had been sent in. They had to pound the Nazi positions on the coast of Normandy. That was the mission of Lawrence Gulick aboard his B-17 bomber.
They didn't tell us until the night before that that was going to be D-Day. We went to the main briefing. Everyone sat down and heard about it. That would last for about a half an hour. Then they would break them up that had pertained to what your duty was going to be like on that particular mission. We didn't get more than a couple hours sleep that night. And boy, we were only half awake, believe me.
8 of us, I was radio operator. We came down, and that's when they dropped the shell in on us. 4 of us was hit. One, he died right there beside, calling for his mother. There's two others down on the ground, and I was the only one standing. And I had blood running down my mouth because I had 2 teeth knocked out and 3 pieces of shrapnel that they dug out later in England at the hospital. 4 of the guys ran and got out of there. Well, I wasn't going to leave these 2 guys laying there because the Germans would have come and shot them. So I left and got 4 guys to come back and carry them back out. So I saved 2 guys' lives. I did that, which I'm glad I did.
With the help of his daughter, Lawrence Gulick tends to the souvenirs of that day.
Fortunately, D-Day was only about 30 minutes or so from where we were in England, because it was on the coast of France, across the channel. And it was a short mission. Only flew for a couple hours, where usually we went out for maybe 6 to 8 hours on a mission. Fighters were bad on that particular mission. Flak wasn't too bad, because the Germans weren't expecting us in that area at that time. It was a surprise to them. Yes.
Some of the people who were still there in the village that endured the Nazi occupation of their village, they were so overjoyed the fact that the Allied forces finally liberated their town from the Germans.
The name of the city, the target, give me a glass. Port and Besson. There hardly wasn't a single time that fighters attacked, they didn't take down a bomber. They were that accurate.
And this is the time you have lost some friends.
Yes, oh gosh, yes. Many.
On the ground, Donald Keller saw how many American bombers crashed on French soil.
I saw a lot of them shot down. They flattened that place out. I mean, it was flattened, there's nothing left of it. And these B-17s came over and almost like blackened the sky in formation. And as soon as they dropped the bombs, it was every man for himself back to England. I've got a clock up here I can show you, out of a B-17 that was shot down. There's St. Lo, and it still works. If you wind it up, it'll run.
40 miles beyond.
At this point, during D-Day, Harold Angle had not yet reached Normandy. His particular battalion was part of the second wave, the army units sent into battle inland.
When I was first inducted, they stamped my paperwork for the U.S. Navy. And lo and behold, the next morning, I was on that troop train going to a U.S. Army location. So I couldn't understand how it got mixed up. But I had an idea that because of the amount of soldiers that were killed and wounded in the D-Day invasion, that they probably needed more replacements.
Would be nice, right? No
Lawrence Gulick also lost many friends and members of his squadron. But it was the death of his friend Julian that had the biggest impact.
Julian was this fellow here. One of the crews he flew on got shot down, and he was killed. And it was his last mission. Those are the accidents that happened, I'll tell you. Unfortunately, I mean, you saw men that were lost on their first mission, but to go through 30 missions and end up being killed, you know.
So this is a letter that was written by Mrs. Julian. She writes, to the family of Lieutenant Lawrence R. Gulick, dear friends, on Saturday, August 26, 1944, I received a telegram from the War Department advising me that my husband, Staff Sergeant William M. Julian Jr., right waist gunner of the crew on which Lieutenant Gulick was a member, was missing in action on August 15th. I am writing you in an effort to obtain any encouraging information you may be able to give me. Thank you for a reply. I am sincerely Mrs. William M. Julian, Jr.
After his second injury, Donald Keller's war ended in Versailles, at the Allied commander's headquarters. In 1945, he met Churchill and Eisenhower, and then he just went home, back to his house, where he lived with his family for 75 years. For Harold Angle, on the other hand, the war continued to Germany.
One of those bullets came in and hit me right in the brim of the helmet. So I still have that souvenir. Here's the bullet in Hollywood.
Years later, Harold's story was brought to the attention of a famous video game producer.
They wanted to get the stories of actual World War II veterans that they could incorporate somehow into the videos that they produce. That does video games called Call of Duty. Did I play it?
Yes.
No. No, I felt I was a real life character in the event, so I didn't play it.
Lawrence, the aviator, survived his 30th mission, but his return from battle was a difficult one.
We were a bunch of young men, 18 to 26. The excitement of what was going on and everything else, I took care of the situation where you just kept going. And then when you came home, you just, you fell apart. It was a nightmare, that's all I can tell you. Boy.
Harold, Lawrence, and Donald still do not know each other. But together, in the history of the United States and of a liberated Europe, they represent the greatest generation.